I have to tell you first how this even happened. I was in my office. Dr. Pogue walked up on me like she does, if any of you know her, and says, I am hosting an event for Black History Month. How will you be in support of it? And I said, however you need me. And I said, I'm a mathematician, so I guess I can help however you need a mathematician. She said, just fine, I will come up with a title. The next thing you know, I was getting some texts from my friend Maria talking about, well, it's great that you're doing, doing this presentation. I was thinking, what presentation? And then she sends me a text and it says, Black mathematics. And I was thinking, do I just write regular math and make sure the letter is black or something like that? Either way, it came to me. And so I figured that it was a great title, Tiffany. So thank you so much. Black Mathematics, a Legacy. And so I finally figured that out. And I kept thinking to myself, after I finally got the premise of a Black history thing. So I said, where do I begin? Do I discuss mathematics phenomenon that go as far back as ancient Kemet and the heart of Africa? We have some of the greatest minds that the world has ever known. You think about the ancient pyramids of Giza that so impressed mathematicians and engineers and physicists today that at one point they were claiming that it was created by aliens. The fact that a structure that was built 2,500 years before Christ with such mathematical precision that even today the pyramids point at true north, true south, true east, and true west at their base within a fraction of discrepancies. And the fact that they were built hundreds of miles from even any straw-making material. Mathematically, it was so impressive. But anyway, so Dr. Pogue, I could talk forever on that. I'm not going to do that, Dr. Jenkins. I think it's best if I just focus on the legacy here in the United States of America, where we have Black mathematicians who've worked through hundreds of years of what we consider oppression and falsities to help us get where we are here today. So it's for that reason I think we should be grateful for their sacrifices and all the things they did that allow us to walk on these hallowed grounds known as Albany State University. Let me get on with this presentation. Like me, those of you who know me, I can't help but to be a little orderly. So there will be an agenda to follow. I know you're thinking, how does he have an agenda during a presentation? I know what you're thinking, but that's what I have going on here. So here it is. I'm going to first introduce myself. All right. And then after my introduction, I'm going to get on with this presentation. And all right. Then I will talk about some of the historical figures, mainly around mathematics. And then I'm going to give you guys, in true Kadhi fashion, a mathematics test. Yes, I know. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I feel the strong suit of being a good mathematician. And then, of course, the outro. I need this agenda, Andre. I know what you're saying. But I need this because this thing keeps me focused. I need these notes because otherwise I'll jump off topic. You know what I mean? Being a Black mathematician myself, I've known a lot of Black mathematicians, namely Dr. A.D. Stewart, the first Black mathematician to get his PhD in mathematics from the University of Texas, who taught me. Probably George Roberts, the first Black mathematician to get his PhD from Texas A&M University, who taught me. And then Dr. Evelyn Thornton, the first African-American female to get her PhD in mathematics from the University of Houston, who also taught me. So I can just keep going on just that alone without this agenda to keep me focused. So make sure you take notes. Anyway, back to the intro. Hi, my name is Taugamba Kadhi. Those of you who did not know me, most of you thinking, what, really? That's his whole first name? Yes, it is my whole first name, Andre. I usually don't put it on a lot of stuff because I don't want people to get confused. So I just stick with Tau Kadhi, and most people call me Tau. Either way, BS Mathematics, MS Mathematics, MS-ED Curriculum and Instruction Mathematics, PhD Mathematics Curriculum and Instruction, MBA, just for good measure. So I do have a little bit of understanding of black mathematicians, and like I said, I've known quite a few. But let's get on to this rest of this presentation. I'm going to talk about the historical figures here, which hopefully will leave you guys with a good understanding of what is not a tragedy, but I would consider a bridge built for all of us to think about the next level of triumph that we can have as mathematicians. All right, this wonderful lady. Now, before I get started, can anybody, any of you students, help me out and tell me what's the latest word for hotness? Because I don't really know one. Maybe Kamaya, Darius. I met you guys earlier. I don't know what's hot anymore. You know, and it changes every year, Andre. So one year is hot, fresh, dope, fleek. I've lived through all of these terms. Could somebody tell me the latest term so I can use it properly to describe these amazing folks in mathematics? I want to speak to you on your level. Could somebody help me out with a word or two? Anybody? Wakanda forever. That just sounds like some stuff. I know that voice. You were not an undergraduate. That wasn't hot at all, I'm sure. So somebody else tell me something. What's a word? Anybody? Licked. Licked. Okay. All right. Licked. See there? You see? You need to learn. When I was in the classroom, I knew all these terms. I would keep a log of them so that I could speak the student's native tongue. All right. So first person we're going to talk about here is Dr. Martha Euphemia Lofton Hayes, and amazing lady here. She's remembered as the first black American woman with a PhD in mathematics in 1943. This was an extraordinary stepping stone. She was highly influential. She was one of the most influential people in our American educational system, where blacks were often segregated and very few in numbers. So for 47 years, this woman worked in various teaching capacities. Now, she also served as chair, I'm going to read this before I elaborate a little bit further, at Dunbar High School, the District of Columbia Teachers College, and in their mathematics department. At Miners College, or Miners Teachers College, which is now DCU, she went on to establish their mathematics department altogether. Well, what's not told in this story is that after getting her PhD, no one would hire her. No one in higher education would hire this woman after receiving her PhD from Michigan. She went on to teach first grade at Garrison and Garfield schools in D.C. She was a teacher at mathematics at Armstrong High. She then went on and taught math, finally, as a department chair at Dunbar High. And then finally, she transitioned to become a professor of mathematics at Minor Teachers College, where then, like I said before, she established the mathematics department at DC. This is an amazing story. And I think this is some of the things we want to talk about, how these people were counted out so many times that you can't even keep count. They were definitely licked. I used that wrong, did I not? Licked, okay, I don't know. Y'all need to give me a new word, okay? Is there another word, Andre? Oh, that's old, Andre. You sound like you're from the 70s. I should have known. Now, are you from Atlanta or what? You should know a word, Andre. Wakanda forever. Anyway, let's move on. Just an amazing woman, and I just think that it's necessary that we at least pay homage to her during this time. Next, we're going to talk about another black mathematician, this guy. This is Jesse Ernest Wilkins, Jr. Yeah, rightly referred to as the Negro genius in the media. This African-American was a mathematician, a mechanical engineer, and a nuclear scientist who became the youngest ever student on the youngest ever student, I didn't say a black student, the youngest ever student to enter the University of Chicago at 13. Wilkins worked as a contributor for the Manhattan Project. Anybody knows what that is? So the Manhattan Project in World War II, he's the guy who helped create the first nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb. We can just move on and on. He wrote numerous papers, received just about every kind of award you can name. And he worked in his field for over 70 years, making contribution to optics that you still see today. The same optics that people use when you talk about weapons design, and that's pretty much where he earned a lot of this. Listen to this accomplishment. He taught math, started off in Tuskegee. I said that, yes. And then he went on to the Manhattan Project. He then went on to do academic, governmental, private, industry, all types of different things in his career. I could spend the next 10 minutes just reading off his list of accomplishments. He ended up, lastly, at Clark Atlanta. And while reading his phenomenal history, Dean Porter, the one thing I researched this man for years, as long as I had from Tiffany telling me I was going to do this to now, but I researched this man, and the one thing I could not find in his history, and it just baffles me, and I'm sure it was one of the most impressive things in his life, was in New Orleans at the National Association and Black Mathematicians Conference in 1997. He met quite possibly the most debonair, amazing, smooth graduate student ever, named Taugamba Kadhi. And I just couldn't find it. I read over and over again, and why is this not mentioned in this man's history? I do not know. I'm going to have to petition someone so they can let him know that we did run into one another, and he was thoroughly impressed. Let us move on. Yeah. Next, we're going to talk about this wonderful lady. Another prominent female mathematician and educator, her name, Marjorie Lee Brown. Marjorie was the third black woman to earn her doctorate in mathematics. And just like everyone else, she could not, of course, get hired at a research one or a major institution. Marjorie, that's okay. She did great for herself. She went on to set up electrical, basically, she was the precursor to computer science. It was this woman that was so awesome. She went on to North Carolina College, which is now known as North Carolina Central University. And once again, it didn't say anywhere in her history where I had taught there also, so I'm going to have to petition them also to get myself in her history. But the point is, amazing accomplishment by Marjorie. She chaired the mathematics department there and was the first person to get a major grant from IBM to establish the computer science in a minority institution in 1960. I need y'all to wrap y'all mind about how licked that is. That's extremely licked, the lickings of the licked. That is amazing. I mean, some groundbreaking work here by this wonderful lady. Again, like I said before, she had stayed at North Carolina Central. That's where she got to work. She also received a little bit later grants from Cambridge and the University of California, where she would go off and travel into various universities to try to spread her influence of mathematics. Just a phenomenal lady. And I'm kind of upset because the whole time I was at Central, I did not see anything that they had done. So truthfully, I do need to call Central and let them know they need to do something in honor of this amazing lady. So they have not even honored that, and that's a tragedy. Okay, let's move on. I don't want to keep us forever. Tiff didn't give me a lot of time. This handsome man right here. This is Dr. David Harrell Blackwell. And Dr. Blackwell, to mathematicians, is quite possibly the greatest African-American mathematician of the modern era. He earned his BA in mathematics in 1938, his MA in math in 1939, and his PhD a wee 3 years later in 1941, all at the age of 22. All from the University of Illinois. He is the 7th African-American to receive his PhD in math, and the first and only African-American to be a member of the National Academy of Sciences and the president of the American Statistical Society and the vice president of the, just some amazingly licked things here. I mean, it was what he accomplished. We still haven't seen genius of this level come back. I mean, from a pure mathematics standpoint and from a statistical standpoint, he pretty much set his foot in many grounds, and he was amazing in all things. He, of course, with all this genius, would anyone hire him at a research major university? Of course not. So he went on to become a faculty at Howard as an instructor. And Howard back then was like it was the place to be if you were a faculty. And they only hired this guy as an instructor. But 3 years later, he had became a full professor and was chairman of the department. So I know people who faculty understand the rise of that. It was just amazing and thoroughly impressive. Extremely licked. And last historical figure I'll talk about today, and this should not go, everyone, do y'all recognize this guy? Oh, well, there you go. Does any of the other students recognize this guy? No? Nobody recognize that guy? Not that guy right there. Does nobody recognize? Young man? No? Boy, I'm glad you're here. All right, so this right here, my good friend, is Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker is a multi-talented person. We only somewhat scratched the surface when we begin to call him a mathematician, Darius. He was also a writer, a compiler of almanacs, a surveyor, an inventor, and at the age of 24, he saw a wristwatch, and he observed it, and he took it apart and put it back together, and then he constructed his own watch out of wood, his own clock out of wood. And the clock ran for 30 years out of wood by just looking at a watch. All right. He created puzzles and trig. The most impressive thing is this man didn't have a teacher. He didn't have books. He self-taught himself astronomy, self-taught himself. Delete that. Anyway, he self-taught. I don't know if that's proper, but anyway, he is an English person here. But he self-taught himself math and astronomy. Are you kidding me? Back in 1800s, guys, or 1700s. This is unbelievable. We talked about the first clock, and I don't know why that picture wouldn't get no smaller. When I played with it, it went right back to regular size, but it's just covering everything now. He created an almanac in 1792. And here's what I thought. The man, I have to tell y'all two stories, okay? The first one I already told you, when his family was introduced to a man, Joseph Levi, who owned a watch. He saw the watch, the man gave him the watch, and I told you he put it together. The next story is just as impressive. A little later, they were going, originally the capital of the United States was in Philadelphia. Most of you knew that, right? Okay, so if you know this story, then they moved the capital from Philadelphia to D.C., but in order to build a city, they wanted to get someone to kind of, an architect, if you will, to kind of lay the groundwork of what this new city was going to look like. So they hired a guy from France because back in those days, the French were ahead of everyone when it came to all architecture, which is why you got the French Quarter and all these other, remember the first tower? Anyway, got this guy from France, L'Enfant, right? Pierre L'Enfant. And Pierre came and Pierre laid this groundwork for the DC. And at the same time, he worked with our man, Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin was on the team because Thomas Jefferson was so impressed by his intellect that Thomas Jefferson asked that Benjamin Banneker be a part of what was going on. Probably the smartest thing Thomas Jefferson did. Well, Pierre got here and was so disgusted by the Americans. He was like, listen, y'all can have all this foolishness. They probably was talking about his voice or something like that. You know how we can be countrified. Anyway, but Pierre got upset, took his maps and everything and left. It's like, I'm done, I'm out. Went back to France. So we were stuck, at least for a minute, until Benjamin Banneker recalled everything they had done from memory. So Benjamin Banneker was so awesome that he recalled the entire city of D.C. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Many of us can't even recall the city of Albany without getting lost. And he retired every street, every corner from this. So I think that that's just it. Now, of course, there are a few others. I could go on for days about these other mathematicians. Kelly Miller, African-American, Johns Hopkins, Woodard, second African-American PhD, established a graduate program at Howard, Cox, right, first African-American to receive a PhD in mathematics. Keep going on and on, third African-American, but just know that they're out there. And I just want you to be aware because a lot of times we are told that we cannot, there's this misconception that blacks today can't learn mathematics. And I can't understand how that could even be stated as a truth. I'll elaborate a little bit more after I give you a mathematics test. All right. What I'd like for you guys to do right now is to, and I'll get done here in a second. How much time do I have? About 5 minutes? Okay, yeah, we're going to finish early. All right, so math test. You don't have to write anything. I want you, but if you are writing, write 2 plus 4. Sheet of paper. Anybody? Okay, I said you didn't have to write anything. I'll just let you write on it, okay? Should show up with a piece of paper prepared to get a test at these things, especially when you see my name. So next time you know, when Kadhi is presenting, he's going to test me. All right. Did many of you think this? Would have written this? Hands. How many people would have thought that, written that? Good. That's it. None of you would have thought this. 2 plus 4. Oh. Would you have thought or written this? I did. Okay, good. All right. Okay. So some people get fancy, want to write equals, and let's go the extra mile. Say it right, 2 plus 4. It's amazing to me that no one writes this. It always blows my mind. Whenever I get to a mathematics class, it's one of the first things I do. And then I explain to them how math, when you really get to a certain level, is a shorthand. When I said the key to being a mathematician, to me, this is all it is. When I said the word 2, boom, something hits you. Like the Holy Ghost of math. Am I right? Okay, my point is something hits you and you begin to think of this symbol. Plus, something hits you. You begin to think of this symbol. Am I correct? Last 4, I'm sounding a little redundant. But my point is, it's a shorthand. Now, go ahead and write any quadratic equation with irrational exponents. Those of you who write nothing are exactly correct. Because that does not exist. By definition, a quadratic equation has to have whole number exponents. So if one just read the definition, then you'd be clear. If you ever notice in a mathematics book that there's a lot more words than probably numbers if you just paid attention? And what they're doing is they're teaching you the language. As you begin to go up, when you get to a master's level, you'll see less words, more symbols. But we start off by trying to get people to understand the language. If ever you're going to truly learn mathematics, I would advise you to really pay attention to those definitions, those terms that relate to these particular symbols. That's the only difference between me and you, is that I understand these terms and symbols and how they apply, much like you understand language. And some people will say, well, what about parentheses, right? That could also mean what? You see two numbers inside of parentheses with a comma, you would assume it'd be a what? A point, maybe? Could be a space, am I correct? How would you know the difference? It depends on how it's written. It depends on the context. If you see the word bear, do you know what it means? B-E-A-R.
Bear.
Does it? Depends on the context. So many times people will look at mathematics and they'll think, well, no, it's a language. It is the language of science. That's what you're learning. So learn it like you're learning a language and understanding that even bear could mean, could mean that, right? Or it could mean the bear children, right? Or the bear forth. So there are many things, and I want you to be aware that's the case. I would also say to you that regardless of what you believe, my thoughts and my beliefs is that we can't escape the genius in the mathematics that's in us. I watch people all the time take a spherical object, weigh this thing mentally, and cast it at a certain arc within a diameter of less than 22 inches. How is that even possible if you're not mentally capable of handling the mathematics? No one does that better than us. If y'all know what I was doing there, it's basketball. Okay, my point is, there's something latent in you. There's something there. There's something that built the pyramids. There's something about you that can get this. So don't ever believe the hype. Don't you ever think that you can't get it. Whether it be math, whether it be science, you are bred from, we all come or descend from the greatest scientific minds that have walked this planet. I started off by telling you about the pyramids. You're all descendants of a great situation and a great people. So it's Black history, even though we talk about it and it can seem somewhat like a tragedy, my thoughts about it is a triumph. So we looked at these particular historical people, these five historical mathematicians that we looked at. Like I said before, they were probably counted out more times than you can count. But they all managed to keep things going because they realized the only time you stay down is when you lay down. And I'm always impressed to learn about our history. And I'd like to thank Dr. Pogue again for giving me the opportunity to speak about Black history. And then I'll say what I've always said since I've taught class and I've taught students. So every time I speak, I have to say the same thing. And that is, motivation is not an act of spontaneous combustion. You've got to set yourself on fire. Simply means that nothing happens unless you make yourself happen. Make it happen. So don't look for nothing to motivate you. It's there. You need to find self-motivation. All right, that's the end of my talk. I'm open for questions. I'm excited to be here. I love being in the class. Golly, I love this stuff.
What you're going to do is you're going to create your own projector. So that way the two beams will be able to reflect to make your hologram come to life. Now, These projectors are made from 4 trapezoids, 4 different trapezoids. So you're going to create your trapezoid mathematically. You're going to use your scale factor. What does that mean is going to happen?
It's going to get bigger.
It's going to get bigger. Or it can get smaller. Let's see if you remember. If I have a dilation of 2, will that get bigger or smaller?
Bigger.
If I want to make the scale factor or make it scale smaller, what would I have to multiply by?
A fraction.
This is the shape you should get, right?
And then you're continuing to connect the points as well as find the length and the height of the.
So
Multiply by 1.5. For 4, we won't get a decimal for 4 because 4 is an even number. So we get -6. And then when we get
Ross said, I'm trying to make this as precise as possible. Gotta make this accurate so I can cut it out right.
yeah.
Oh my God. It's just, how is that possible?
It's pretty cool.
It's like he's floating. He's just.
That's pretty cool, right?
oh, look at Sadie's. Look at Sadie's.
All right.
See?
That's pretty cool. You did it?
It's pretty weird. She's just like staring at me. But
It's fire. It's like a fireplace. It's lit. It is lit.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's 3D projections there. It was nice. What I really like to see, and I will always say since we're young educators, is that I like the fact that she didn't try to talk down to the kids. I like the fact that when she was communicating as clearly and as she was using a lot of mathematical terms that will help students later. I'll advise you to keep that in mind when you teach young students, especially math. Try to talk up to them. Because I know you want to make things easier by saying, okay, well, you take this number and you flip it. Well, there's no flip in a mathematics book. There's an inverse, right? Am I correct, those people? Right? There's many things you can do, but when we begin to use math bonics, we really take them to a place where they can't find another level. You want to build on what's there. So I was really pleased with the fact that even the kids were speaking a level of math to them. So he wasn't trying to explain something to someone by saying, okay, here's what you do and you're going to, I like the fact that there was dialogue. And that is how you begin to understand this thing. Remember I told you, it's a language. Language is science. Is there anything else? I think that is my time. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I really need to get back into the math classroom. I really miss it. But unfortunately, sorry, I've been doing the administrative thing. Anyway, anything else? Anyway. Nothing? I put on my new glasses today. Wore the bow tie. John, I was trying to be impressive. All right. Well, thank you. All right, thank you all.